If you find you're unsettled listening today, reach out to a trusted friend or go to tradespodcast.com and click on resources.
We are men in the trades, forging health in the drug poisoning crisis. This is
Off the Clock Toolbox Talk.
If you haven't listened to Aeris' story part 1 yet, go back and listen to it first. This episode picks up when Aeris is just emerging from his month-long coma due to overdose. There's still a whole other part of his story that starts now. Trigger warning, discussion about the effects of losing someone to overdose.
I got moved to acute care where I was being tube fed and I was being stomach fed and still had a bunch of tubes. I still was on dialysis because my kidneys were shot. I had to get wheeled to dialysis, which is where I realized that's where the double-decker bus hallucinations were coming from. Me being wheeled from the hospital ward to dialysis. Just crazy. Everything started to slowly fade back into reality. And I remember overhearing a nurse say, yeah, he's going to need a kidney transplant. And I was like, who's going to need a kidney transplant? And they looked at me and they're like, what? Whoa. He just acknowledged like people in the room that are here and like, that are actually like, whoa. And like, they got the doctor and they're like, then I sort of all came to, but it was such like a weird, wasn't even shocked. I was just like, holy cow, this is what's happened. This is what's happened, you know? And yeah, my kidneys were non-functional and eventually, I did need a transplant, but every 3 days I get urine back and my points for my liver and my kidneys would go up by a bit. And eventually after a month and a half, I got moved to the hospital admission and my kidneys were 50%, 55%, didn't need dialysis anymore. And I got to go home, but I was wasted away. I was like 110 pounds, completely sullen, just absolute, couldn't stand up, couldn't walk because of all the blood pressure medications I was on. Eventually, I recovered enough to go home, and brain injuries are for life, but yeah, it was a slow process. Surrounded by my family and steadfast wife and steadfast family and steadfast parents and steadfast friends, and they were just there. People were there for helping me everything, go to the bathroom, everything. And
Wow, I'm just like, I'm speechless. I'm just sitting here and just trying to take it in.
yeah,
but that's not where your story ends.
No, it's not where my story ends. So eventually I get to go to my parents' house. And unfortunately, when I was in the hospital, my parents had told the staff that I needed a pain specialist. He needs a pain specialist. He's had multiple surgeries. He was self-medicating because he was in pain. This happened, we think, because of self-medication. He needs a pain specialist. He needed one for a long time. His doctor retired. And they're like, yeah, no problem. We'll get him a pain specialist. Wink, wink, pain specialist. Yeah, no problem. And I had just had a cognitive baseline test. And that day, I remember this, that day, in walks this little doctor. And I'm like, oh, are you my pain specialist? And she's like, I am not a pain specialist. I am an addictions doctor. And you had a very bad overdose. And your options are methadone or Suboxone. And I was like, what? Are you sure? And I was in a lot of pain at the time, too. And I was not allowed any medication because I had been kicking the hospital gurney, like when I was seizuring and stuff. So I had like completely torn my plantar fasciitis or whatever, how you pronounce that. I torn my foot muscle. And she gave me two options, and I chose Suboxone because that was familiar to me because I had used it to taper in the past off of opiates from my doctor in a legitimate fashion. And I didn't know I would have to go through the whole OAT procedure. And yeah, she gave the hospital a script for Suboxone, and that became my ritual with all my other medications. And I left the hospital with addicted to oats, addicted to Suboxone when I did.
Would you have said, like, I mean, this is just kind of strange the way this came about. Like, were you dependent on opioids?
No, not at all.
That is gross error.
Yeah, and I said, like, she offered it to me. I remember a bit of it, but I think I said Suboxone because she gave me two choices. So she gave me that script, but the hospital had told my parents' pain specialist, and
Mhm.
they thought that because I was a fentanyl overdose, that they really were just trying to be polite, and I needed an addictions doctor.
Mm.
And
And it walked
they
a new
didn't
clinic. Sorry.
did they not know like your history of Crohn's and like
Yep,
the legitimate pain? Did
they
they
knew.
know all that stuff?
Yep. Yeah, my parents told the hospital over and over again. But my wife told the hospital over and over again, he needs pain medication sometimes. He
Did
needs a pain
anybody read
specialist.
your chart?
They didn't go that far. No, I mean, I guess all my records were somewhere, but they weren't the clinic that I went to, the Oak Clinic, was across the street from the hospital. So in my old doctor's office, which is kind of weird.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I had to see an addictions doctor, and she kept me on daily witness Suboxone all through COVID.
So
I
did
was
you
on
have any idea what that was going to like be like? And then of
Nope.
course now once you're on Suboxone, um, you rapidly become dependent on it,
Yep.
like all opioids. So you can't just suddenly stop it without
No.
having significant withdrawal,
Yep.
which is much more drawn out than other than opioids like heroin or morphine. So
And
what?
your cognitive functioning wasn't back to baseline yet, correct?
No, my IQ point was like I was clinically special needs at that time. Yeah, I couldn't even draw a clock properly. Like I went to draw a clock, and then like the one was outside the clock, and like like I was
Yeah,
bad.
and
I
that's
was
all
bad.
brain inflammation
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh yeah. And so I had history, like I said, rapidly tapering off of opioids that was being prescribed for various Crohn's issues with Suboxone. So when I told her I wanted to get off of it, right after I was stable and whatever, I had a daily witness. It sucked. It was embarrassing, but I did it. And I
Mhm.
told her I wanted to get off of it. She's like, no, 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 no. You don't get off this. This is a lifetime thing. And I'm like, but I have pain issues, and I know pain medication won't work on Suboxone. She's like, you will never get pain medication again. Never, ever. You will never get pain medication again. Ibuprofen, Tylenol, that's what you get. And I was like,
Jeez.
but I can't have ibuprofen. She's like, what if I need surgery or something? She's like, they will figure it out there. And I'm like, no, I want to get off of that. I want to taper. And she made me sign a waiver. And she,
That's legitimate or supposed to be of your own volition,
yep,
but
made me
Yeah.
sign a
making
waiver.
you do it.
I had to fight and then essentially fire my oat doctor because she refused to help me taper as well. This is many years ago, but these kind of stories are absolutely infuriating. There's no agency given to the patient. This is your life. It's
She
not up
told me
to
I had to
some
wait. Yeah.
doctor to decide what your life is going to be like.
Yeah.
Yes, she told me I had no agency. She said, I am the boss. I am the boss. I make the choices. I'm the boss. Suboxone, methadone, that's what you get. I am the boss. And I was so fed up with daily witnessing. Then COVID happened, and I started going back to work, and I had to like drive from work, and sometimes she wouldn't fax the script over, and she'd forget because her
Mm.
caseload was so high. And then I'd be like, oh no, I don't have a script, and I'd have to all this juggling, and it was an absolute, not joking, it was so terrible and so inconvenient sometimes. And I'd have to bring my newborn daughter in through COVID, like to daily witness Suboxone. And eventually I talked to a friend of mine who was a nurse. Once I told her what would happen, and I had peed clean for like over a year and a half at this point. This was getting into like 2021, and I was in so much pain because I had developed avascular necrosis from the prednisone I had been prescribed, but I didn't know it at the time until we further. But did ultimately get a double hip replacement, and I had told her I was in so much pain, and she didn't care. And I told my a friend of mine who was a nurse on the downtown east side, and she's like, "That is terrible. What she's doing to you is not even procedure." I mean,
Mhm.
this doctor had me frisked twice because she thought I was bringing in fake urine. She had me frisked by her secretary. I remember the secretary blushing and saying, "Sorry, this doctor is making me do this. I'm so sorry." And she gave me a light frisk one time because she thought I was bringing in fake urine.
Wow. So demeaning. Just
It's
So
not even
terrible
allowed. It's not
treatment.
even
demeaning.
legal. I don't think that's legal. I don't think
Yeah.
that's legal, but whatever. Like, so yeah, man. Eventually I went to a rack clinic. At St. Paul's, where they quickly got my records and they vetted everything. And I walked out of there with a month of Suboxone, and I was so free.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had to talk to this doctor again. And it was so liberating. I was so happy,
Mm.
because there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
so
yeah.
much inconvenient times when I had to go on a trip with my family. She'd be so tight with the blister packs and like the days, and she'd make me go to outside pharmacies, and it was just I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go for trips. I could
There's no
have my
dignity.
own.
There
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
zero dignity. And it's
You're
just like the most basic human right to dignity.
yeah. Yeah, you're a prisoner to that system.
yeah.
And it's terrible. I mean, the way they use urine screens, the way that they don't listen to you, the way that you're not respected, and you wonder why people don't want to access services
I know
sometimes,
why.
or how they,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Especially with fentanyl, you're dealing with morphine equivalents of thousands of milligrams, and you're dealing with benzo equivalents of hundreds of milligrams of Valium a day, right? You can't get
Mm.
off that with standard oats. You need fentanyl.
Mm.
You need fentanyl to get off fentanyl, or Sublocade or something. But then if you still have trauma, you don't get it, and that's why we have this system we have right now, and it's so broken.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's my story with being put on oats. We're gonna cut back now. Eventually, I went back to work. I started having a lot of pain because after much investigation, I got diagnosed with avascular necrosis from the prednisone, and I had to eventually in 2022 had to stop working because I needed a hip replacement and then another hip replacement. I needed a double hip replacement, and I was still going to the rat clinic, and they put me on hydromorphone at that time because I was in so much pain, and I used it as prescribed. I used
Mhm.
that. I did it. They trusted me. They gave me. I asked for weekly releases because I didn't want a bottle of eights sitting around, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, so now I'm stuck. I volunteer with a group called Safe Admission because I need something to do while I'm off work. I'm on medical EI, and through Safe, and after my hip replacement, I got picked up by Mountainside Harm Reduction to become a FTIR technician. The people,
Just so
Canis.
everyone knows as listening, that's a drug testing. It's the Fourier transform infrared spectrometer. So you're analyzing drug samples
Yep.
and testing them for quality and adulterants and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There is obviously. I'm gonna get too into the limitations of it. There is limitations, but it's better than not knowing what you're taking, right? And
Mhm.
and because I
Absolutely.
was so drug nerdy when I was going to the safe meetings, when Tanis came in was like, hey, we need someone to volunteer for some part-time work as a tech, and we'll pay them. And they're like, oh, Aeris. He's on the island right now, but she emailed me, and a week before I had just hit up Get Your Drugs Tested Instagram and messaged him about how to become an FTIR tech because I needed a new job. I had been in trades my entire life, like my entire working career, let me say, actually. Sorry, like from the age
Mhm.
from age 25 to now I'm what? I don't even know how old I am. 35, right? 10 years I had been in trades. That was my job.
Mhm.
That was my job. That was my company. Those are my friends. I'd never, other than the brief stint I had before treatment, like that's my job. And it was terrifying. I was like applying to like cannabis dispensaries and stuff. I didn't know what to do.
Mm.
Mhm.
So when I got hooked in with Mountainside, man, it was like I it was a Hail Mary moment, man. Like it was amazing. They
Mm.
they completely saved me. And I guess I excelled, and now that's my job. That's what I do.
It sounds exactly right for you. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I would never want to say somebody had to go through all that because I'm mortified at what you've had to go through and the way that you've been treated, but that you can serve other people and prevent other people from having to go through those
Hmm.
things,
Yeah.
that like there's just so much meaning in that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
yeah, the power of you persevering, um, with through all that is just really inspiring and encouraging, and um, offers a lot of hope, I think, to other people. And the theme of connection and the people sticking by you in your life and in your journey is so important. And what we need to find a way to do for others is help them advocate for themselves, help people realize that they do have agency, that just because a doctor told you something or said that this is the way,
Yep.
this is the only way. No, you're on this medicine for the rest of life. This is your only two options. No, like
Mhm.
advocate, we need to help people and advocate for themselves. And so many
Yeah.
people can't. They're maybe they're in comas. They can't
Yep.
advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
They need people around them who can stand up. And unfortunately, like historically, especially when it comes to substance use and drug addiction, um, the professionals don't treat people like this like they're people.
Yeah.
They just no, they don't listen.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what I want. No, I'm not listening to you. You're a drug addict. And
Yeah.
we got to
Same
bring an end
commodity.
to
Yeah.
that. We got to
Yeah.
bring an end to that way of treating people. It's not humane, right?
And it's the whole system too. I mean, I'm thinking about when I needed some time off work because of some stuff that was happening with my special needs child, and I had to get a doctor's note to take a leave,
Mm.
and the doctor insisted on putting me on antidepressants. And I was like, no, I'm not depressed. I have zero signs of depression. I am burned out and I need time off to take care of my child. And he's like, nope, this is the way the system works. We have to and you have to see me every week to see how your depression's doing. And I was
Yeah.
like, this
Fuck
is
off.
insane. And it's like, so it's the whole system is so fucked up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like it's just so I really do want to encourage, implore, inspire people, like take control of your own health, like really think about it, and work with other people that know and love you, like Aeris's family, who can be like, man, I don't think that's what's actually going on, because all my friends and all most of my friends are therapists, and they were like, yeah, you don't have depression, Karen. Like that's not going to
Mm.
be helpful, don't do that,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, your story highlights another kind of thing in a bit of a absurd way. Here's the experts telling you what you should do and what they know, and then suddenly they say, "Oh, actually, well, we don't really know anything about the brain.
Yep.
Exactly,
We don't really know
exactly.
what we're
Verbatim.
talking about at all."
Verbatim.
And I mean,
So
addiction is the same way. Addiction, we don't really understand addiction, not at the expert, level.
Nope.
Experts, make all these claims, but this is complex. This is life, right? And so, when anyone tries to tell you in a black and white sort of reductive way, this is exactly what's happening, or this is exactly what you must do. There's nuance, and this is more complex than any one pathway and one journey and one right and wrong
Hmm.
decision. So your
Hmm.
story sure highlights that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So you're with Mountainside Harm Reduction today. Like
I
that's
am.
what your job is now, and you're
Yep.
doing drug testing and what else is involved in that?
Oh, everything. We're frontline workers, right? Testing. We obviously issue advice. We do supplies. We give people hammer pipes, which are sanctioned by Health Canada right now. So there's no real straight subsidy for hammer pipes like there is for bubble pipes, which hammer pipes are used to smoke fentanyl. And a lot of overdoses are caused by people mixing up, a bubble pipe that had fentanyl in it,
Hmm.
with a bubble pipe with meth.
Hmm. Yeah.
I know because a secondary job that I do is working for a community services society in my town, and now on a casual basis. But I get to Narcan people now, and I get to work with people on the front lines now, right there, because we started a pop up at this site, and through them they gave me a chance at having a job working as a resident worker. So
Mm.
yeah, this
I don't know if you have, I'm kind of curious. I don't know if you're able to go into this but that incident with your brother dying when you're young,
yeah.
and that being such a traumatic thing, obviously impacting you in a deep way. How like, is there a way you can articulate how you processed that trauma and what that journey looked like for you?
Yeah, it was. I was a very, very, very sensitive child. I didn't have any major signs of like mental illness at the time. When my dad told me that it killed him, like the MD, he went to a rave, he took MDMA and it killed him, or took a drug, he said, and it killed him. Like, just darkness, man. Darkness, like this enveloping, soul crushing darkness that I wanted to run from. That's what I did, right? I ran home, opening the door. And when I opened the door to like my safe space, my home, it was intense sorrow everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There was a steady stream of mourners coming and going. My mom was crushed. I lost my mom. I lost my mom for
Yeah.
a time, like a
Mm,
time when I needed a family, and I don't hold any animosity at all. And I know my parents to this day have brought it up, like, oh, we're so sorry that like we couldn't be there for you. And I'd say it's not you, it's not you. Like, this was
Yeah.
devastating, right? But
Yeah.
it was, and then I disassociated.
mm,
So my family, to like stop, I guess to stop the trauma, because my dad was trying to support my mom who was crushed. So I
Yeah.
was just crying in my bedroom for a while, and there was so much going on. And then it was just like running my finger over comics he had given me. And then it was taking those comics to my uncle's house and just like realizing he's not going to be there on my birthday. And it's just this like incredible loss that I was in no way, shape, or form even remotely prepared for. I didn't even think that could happen. Didn't
yeah.
think it could happen. I didn't know that death like that existed. I didn't know that this situation could affect a family so traumatically. And that's looking back. Like, that trauma didn't even exist in my world. I was 11. I was
Yeah.
11,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I
No
was from a
orientation
suburb.
whatsoever.
Yeah, and it. Yeah, I blocked it out for a long time. I didn't talk. I couldn't talk about them. Went in the hallway to cry every week at school.
Mm.
Um, got diagnosed with ADHD a couple years later, and then eventually got put on Ritalin for that. And that was the first drug that I abused.
Right.
That was
Right.
the first drug that I
Was
abused. And
that a diagnosis a good one? Was it accurate?
I think so. Because it did sort of help me.
Mm,
But I mean, you never know when you give a kid a solution to ADHD and ADD, like, are complex disorders in and of themselves. There's such a
Yeah.
huge spectrum, right? And there's quite a small amount of drugs you're allowed to give a child, right? That time it was Ritalin. That time it was
Yeah.
Ritalin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I got. And in high school,
Well,
that was the first drug I snorted, and I didn't really get high off it. I didn't care. But actually, the first drug I ever ordered from a service was alcohol. I would
huh.
call a
yeah.
boot line that would buy alcohol for minors, and
Wow.
we get 24 cases of Wildcat and go drink in a park. That was that was like beginning of grade 10, end of grade 9, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, calling a line for weed, right? Grade 10. And then
Yeah.
eventually just, hey man, MDMA. And of course I was like, oh, my brother died from that. Like, I'll never do it. But then I started researching it, and I started realizing that there's more to this drugs, and no, 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 no. And I was so
Yeah.
curious. And then a part of it was, I guess, like quite,
What was it, a legitimate MDMA overdose that actually
it
killed
was
your
a
brother?
heart
Or
attack. Yeah. I mean, on a coroner's report, it was attributed to an overdose, but he, he had a heart attack because he was pinned down and held down by security guards.
yeah.
So there's probably something there, but we'll never know. My
Yeah.
parent,
Yeah.
there was never in-depth autopsy. My parents just wanted him cremated and just wanted to move like with that process and get him in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I
so
just want to comment too that ADHD symptoms are also symptoms of trauma. And
oh yeah,
so and I mean, I have a child with complex special needs, and I have lots of concerns about the different psychiatric drugs that are prescribable for children and whatnot, and why and how they're prescribable. And I know that some kids absolutely need them. And so I have a lot of respect for our neuropsychiatrist who has to walk this very careful, thoughtful
Yep.
line. And we have a good neuropsychiatrist. But it's like I'm not officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I have so many ADHD symptoms. But I think that they're also results of trauma. And so like it's so interesting when we go, so you were prescribed your original drug, really, and yet you clearly had trauma. And so this is where it gets into like we don't really know what we're doing with this stuff. We're
Nope.
trying stuff to help a little bit for here and there, and maybe your school was asking for help with your ADHD, but
No, I think it was my mom. She just didn't know what to do with, because my change had been so dramatic from
yeah,
this kid who's just plays games with his
But of
friends and is
course
very
it's
like with it,
dramatic.
incoherent, and now I'm just like but darting around and like
yeah,
going into
that's
my head.
trauma. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So I mean, no, I didn't stay on Ritalin for life. I've been on and off like a treatments for ADHD my entire life with success. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like a whole other topic.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I'm
It's
so glad you're here, Eris, and that
yeah.
you you're alive. You came through that, and that you're making a difference in other people's lives, and sharing your story is powerful. I know there's so many bits to this that are going to inspire and offer hope to people. Um, I'm just wondering, is there like a message that you would want to leave people with? Is there something you want to say?
Yeah, I think the only thing I can say is be kind to that
Mm,
person on the street who you may not take to immediately, who might be acting irrationally because you don't know what caused that behavior. You don't know if
mhm,
they're having a bad day. You don't know what symptoms they have. And sometimes one moment of kindness can honestly save a life. I think that everyone should be kind to one another. I don't know that message is spread far and wide, and it's not. It's taken into like be kind to one another, everyone. See you later. It's a tagline, but like I genuinely believe being kind and generous with your time to people
mhm.
who you might not even know could ultimately save a life.
Yep.
I
It might save your life, actually, like your
Yeah,
own life when you're
that's
kind to other
NA.
people.
Yep, that's
Mhm.
NA. That's like the doctrine of NA, right?
Hmm.
I think that if you are seeking help for substance use and you don't like how you're feeling, and just talk to your doctor. And if you aren't getting anywhere with your doctor, there's other doctors. We're in a socialized medical system,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and you can ask for another doctor. You're not stuck. Like I'm just afraid to ask for help. I'll just like sit there and be meek
Yeah.
and passive, but you don't need to be. You
Hmm.
don't need to be. If you don't like how you're being treated, advocate for yourself. Do your best anyways, because I know it can be really hard.
Yeah.
And if your family member is suffering, be there, love them, learn how to use the loxone, and learn about how much death that this crisis has wrought, because it's astronomical. And if you're in the room or building with someone that you love and they go down, you don't might not want to you might want to think twice about kicking somebody onto the street. My parents kicked me onto the street, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
my wife left me, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
So if you can get through and you see a light anywhere, just go towards it. Not if you're dying, but that light is a metaphor, for
Yeah.
just love, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks, Eris. This has been a really incredible time we spent together, and I'm still speechless. I'm just trying to take it in. Like it's
Hmm.
an incredible story, and the compassion and humanity that you bring to it is just so critical for us. So thank you.
Yeah, and
get your drugs tested.
get your drugs tested. Absolutely. I want to keep, I would just want to encourage you to keep up with this. Like, I don't know how much opportunity you get to share your story or if you're doing any speaking and whatnot, but it's powerful, and I want to encourage you to push into that and seek those opportunities.
Yeah, Google Mountainside Harm Reduction Society, and our calendar is on our website, and we service Fraser Health East, and we are doing sites 7 days a week now. So we do not judge.
Yes, that's
We are
awesome.
anonymous.
You're in
Anonymous
my
as
town too, Thursdays in Langley
We just
doing
moved
drug
there.
testing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we just
great.
moved to Langley. Yeah. And thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Really, that's amazing. Off the Clock Toolbox Talk has been a Fraser House Society project, executive produced and co-hosted by Karen Jansen, managed by Delan Young on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Production of this material has been made in part through a financial contribution from Health Canada. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of Health Canada or Fraser House Society. The content of this podcast is conversation between people with living experience and should not be taken as professional advice. Special shout out to Mountainside Harm Reduction serving BC's Fraser Valley. Check out mtnsidesociety.ca. Help save lives. Go to tradespodcast.com and click on the link under Enter to win a $200 grocery card. When you fill out the survey, you help us understand what's working and what's not. Each survey for each episode listened to is a separate entry. Information collected is for survey purposes only and is not shared. Help us, help you.